comprise this legal framework. I'd mentioned previously the Banking Act for commercial banks, the Financial Institutions Act for financial institutions, particularly merchant banks, the Building Societies Act, particularly for building societies, and the Bank of Jamaica Act, which also governs the Bank of Jamaica's role and responsibilities in supervision. There are also a number of regulations that have been pronounced that governs the deposit-taking institutions' operations. And a lot of the legal framework attempts to address certain key areas of a deposit-taking institution. For example, how does an individual or a corporation get a banking license, a deposit-taking license? What is required to start a bank? What is the necessary capital infrastructure that needs to be in place? Who can manage a bank and run a bank? What are the necessary criteria that must be met? Who can have controlling interest? What are some of the limits that needs to be established in terms of the risk appetite that a bank can have, and some of the related party or connected party transactions that a bank can engage in? And there are a number of other aspects of the legal framework that financial institutions are required to adhere to. We have also issued guidelines, as I've indicated before, and these guidelines cover a number of the risk areas of a financial institution. Notice in almost all my discussion in the role of the Bank of Jamaica, it is really targeting the risk exposure and the risk activities of financial institutions. Because we recognize in order for a financial institution to pay any sort of return to not only shareholders but also depositors, they must engage in risk-taking activities. And that's where the Bank of Jamaica comes into play by setting certain guidelines and infrastructure in place in order to ensure that that risk-taking does not become excessive to the detriment of depositors. Now, apart from the legal framework being in place, the Bank of Jamaica also, as I indicated before, physically attends the offices of a deposit-taking institution. And in addition to that, we may go as far as attending some of the branches of deposit-taking institutions. And what does that attendance entail? We examine their operations. We interview senior management, and where necessary, we speak with the board of directors, because we want to identify as far as possible that deposit-taking institutions are complying with the legal framework that has been established for them. We collect and analyze data and information in order to assess their current financial condition, and we assess the adequacies and systems and controls that they have in place, once again, for risk management. We verify as far as possible data that they submit to us periodically. Financial institutions, deposit-taking institutions are required on a periodic basis. In some instances, it's daily, monthly, quarterly, or annually that they submit to the Bank of Jamaica. And when they submit that information to the Bank of Jamaica, we analyze and review that data because it gives us insight into the operations of financial institutions. In addition to that, it allows us to conduct certain scenario analysis or forecasting of what if something happens to a bank. It also gives us a systemic view of what if something happens to Jamaica's financial system, or there's a contagion effect from more international market forces. We have to confirm that as far as possible, the information that comes from deposit-taking institution is at least of a certain level of integrity that we can accurately, or as far as possible, make these sort of predictions. And so when we examine a financial institution, there are certain areas that we look at. We refer to it as our CAMELS system. We look at how adequate a financial institution's capital is, because that represents their first line of defense in the event those risks that we talk about are actually realized. We look at the quality of a bank's assets, because at the end of the day, if they need to repay depositors' funds before they get to deposit insurance, the assets that they have a realizable value that they can utilize to repay depositors. We look at the corporate governance infrastructure. Is the management and board of directors of a bank sound and effective in its administration of the bank? We examine the earnings sustainability of a financial institution and the effect it will have on its operations and its capital. We look at the liquidity of our financial institutions, and there are certain risks that emanate from the market. We want to know how sensitive a financial institution is to those risk exposures. We have also broadened our on-site examination of financial institutions to look at their money laundering infrastructure. The Bank of Jamaica has issued guidelines to deposit-taking institutions on how to curb as far as possible money laundering activities or even financing of terrorism activities. And so we assess compliance with those regulations and those legal framework. We also look at the robustness of the information technology system and, as far as possible, the business continuity and contingency plans that they have in place. Now, we try to do, as is obligated by law, an annual on-site examination of deposit-taking institution. So yes, that happens once per year. But what else do we do throughout the rest of the year? We monitor the deposit-taking institution off-site. What does that mean? That means we still collect data and we verify that data. We still analyze that data. We conduct trend analysis, comparative analysis. We monitor the implementation of certain corrective actions that we enforce against financial institutions that probably emanate from our off-site monitoring or when we go on-site to financial institutions. We conduct fit and proper assessments. In other words, we assess whether or not a senior manager who has been employed by a financial institution or a member of a board of directors who has been appointed by a financial institution, whether or not they're actually suitable to perform that function. We also analyze the financial statements of the financial institution, and under the ambit of consolidated supervision, as I had mentioned before, we also look at the subsidiaries that a financial institution has, associated companies or sister companies that a financial institution has, because we want to identify the effect those periphery institutions will have on the financial condition of the financial institution itself. And of course, finally, as part of our relationship management, we liaise as far as possible and interact as much as possible with senior managers and the board of directors, because we want to keep ourselves abreast, and also the deposit-taking institution has that responsibility to keep us as the regulators abreast of what it is that they do. Now, we police the system, but what happens when those laws are broken? What do we do? There are certain enforcement powers that the Bank of Jamaica has and from time to time employs. We may require a financial institution to sign a board undertaking, which is nothing more than a plan of action of what it does or intends to do in order to bring itself in compliance with the laws that they have broken. We may even go as far as where the Bank of Jamaica, as a regulator themselves, issue directions to the financial institution, once again identifying a plan of action for the financial institution. In some instances, depending on the sort of activity that the financial institution is engaging in, that is not in compliance with the legal framework or is putting the financial institution or the wider deposit-taking system at risk, we may issue cease and desist orders. And that might not be unfamiliar to us. In worst case scenarios, we may have to assume temporary management of a financial institution. And of course, you recognize that this is nothing more than a progressive ladder, because where assumption of temporary management may not necessarily place a financial institution back in the position it was before, it may go as far as, or recommendation to the Minister of Finance, to either suspend or revoke the license of a deposit-taking institution. Now, the Bank of Jamaica, as far as possible, tries to adhere to what is referred to as the Basel Core Principles. The Basel Core Principles is issued by the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision, and this is an international corporation comprising of G10 countries that establish voluntary standards for deposit-taking systems, or the regulation of deposit-taking systems. Now, this is very important to us because in instances where the World Bank, for example, or the IMF is assessing the effectiveness of Jamaica's deposit-taking regulatory system, these are the principles that it will utilize. And it will assess whether or not the Jamaica regulatory system is in compliance with the 25 principles. Therefore, the Bank of Jamaica has a responsibility to ensure that as much as possible, a lot of these principles are employed within our regulatory architecture. As a new phenomena that falls under the Bank of Jamaica regime, which most of you may have heard about, especially with the effectiveness of the Credit Reporting Act in 2010, October specifically, as well as the credit reporting regulations in January of 2011, is this introduction of a credit bureau. Now, a credit bureau is nothing more than an agency that collects credit information on you and I, and it collects that credit information from lenders that you and I have borrowed from, and other relevant credit information on our credit history, and it provides that information for a fee to prospective lenders. So, recall last year, you walk into a bank, you request a loan. The bank will conduct certain credit assessments on you to determine whether or not you are creditworthy to extend the facility. Now, the credit bureau plays an integral part in providing the credit information to a financial institution to help them to make that assessment. Now, a financial institution previously would garner as much information as possible as it can within the ambit of which it operates. But a credit bureau is able to garner much wider information because that information is collected from everyone you have borrowed from. And it gives that financial institution an idea as to how creditworthy you are as a borrower. How does that help you? That helps you because if you are a low-risk borrower, then there's the lesser likelihood that the financial institution will charge you a higher interest rate. It helps you because it gives you an idea for yourself of your own credit performance and credit worthiness. So there are a number of advantages for a credit bureau, which I do have itemized here. But what is the Bank of Jamaica's role in the establishment and development of credit bureau? It is similar to those of deposit-taking institutions. We have the responsibility of reviewing and recommending on license applications for credit bureaus, just as we do for deposit-taking institutions. We will have the responsibility, or we do have the responsibility for conducting on-site examinations, as we do for deposit-taking institutions, examining reports that are submitted, but also, which is interesting, we also have the responsibility to investigate customer complaints, because customers have the responsibility to preview their own credit report, identify information on that credit report that might not be true, and find some resolution mechanism in order to clarify the adverse information on their credit report. Because it does affect you getting a loan and getting a good interest rate on that loan. One of the tools for that resolution mechanism is the Bank of Jamaica. Now, how does this fall all in the roles and responsibilities of the Bank of Jamaica? It falls largely here, where the Bank of Jamaica has a responsibility to ensure the soundness of the financial system. And that is what we do in order to protect your money as far as possible. If you need further information on the roles and responsibilities of the regulator arm of the Bank of Jamaica, you can always visit our website at www.boj.org.jm. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much. Damian McIntosh. I think we can refer to him now quite confidently as our resident police officer. You saw how many times he made reference to the BOJ being the police for the system. So thank you very much, Mr. Police Officer. We're going to change gears a little bit. We know it's a Friday evening. You've worked hard all week. You want to relax. And whilst you know that you would be excited to pay for this entertainment that you're about to see, it's free. We're not charging for it. So at this juncture, going to invite the children's first Bashi Bus crew who will be performing a skit for us at this time. It's just about a 10-minute skit, and I'm going to invite them to come at this time. And as they come, we, the panelists, we're going to clear the stage to allow them to do their thing. Most of you, when you came here this evening, would have received a kit looking like this. Those of you who didn't get a kit like this, please raise your hands now so that Marjorie can find you in the audience and hand one of these to you. Every person here is going to want one of these kits. Inside the kit is a particular ticket, which is the future.
Princess! Princess! Princess!
Yes, Granny!
Tell the way to come.
May I come?
Come put it on Matty Parkins.
Sure.
Yeah! Open on the club, we gonna get. One just chop.
Hi, I'm Michael Anthony Cuff. You know, I think from time to time we're all guilty of ignoring important matters concerning the safety of our money. Take deposit insurance, for example. How much do we really know about it? Deposit insurance is a scheme to protect deposits in...
What's wrong with the radio?
I'm going to tell us that the battery are done.
Come and fix it.
Granny, guess what?
I don't have any money to give you.
I know money me I come back. Guess what? Me here say JDIC met the bank I give you 600,000, so me I go run for my own.
600,000?
Yeah, 600,000. Me I go run for my own. Come on, 600,000.
No, come on, I don't want to kill a granny now.
No, I'm not killing granny. Yes, me about my back put the whole light in.
600,000?
600,000.
Give me the money.
We are not here at work now. Me here say you have to have money in the bank so that them can make you get the $600,000 from the bank. So if you don't have no money in the bank, you can't get it. But if you have money in the bank, you can get $600,000.
I don't believe you. Call Kevin for me. I can't.
No, I'm seriously matter, Granny.
I said to call Kevin. I don't believe you.
But I seriously matter.
I'm not giving you any of my money. Go and call Kevin.
Hey, Kevin! Oi! Where there? Yo, I go on my general. How am there? See me run out, sir? Where you there? Where I go on, cuz? Me tell Granny say, JDIC met the bank, I give her 600,000, and me I go to for my word now, and me am a bag. You see me? Cause more $600,000. Yo, cuz.
You're about 6 years now, you come from country now. And you still have this country attitude. You know what I'm telling you, man?
No, I no country me here, sir.
Alright, calm down.
So me no come?
Granny, why you not say him go work a country?
I don't know why I sent him to school.
Hey. How which part you ever hear say people just get up and give you money, sir?
No, I no get up and give you money. Me here say you have money in the bank to get money. So I saw you get the 600,000 and through me have money in the bank. You know, me I go down the car, me can get 600,000.
Alright, here we go on. You see youth club with me now?
Yeah.
Right now, a little more we are going Emancipation Park, go perform for JDIC. So let me give you a little info, because I know everything about it, you know. You see JDIC, them are really Jamaica Deposit Insurance Corporation.
Yeah.
And what them do? Them insure your money. You get what I say?
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah, man, that nice. For know, say you know all of that and tell me, but here we go, I'm my 600,000, me I go back, boy.
Alright. You hear me I say? Can you come like you not understand, you know? Here are 600,000 coming, because them really have something to do with 600,000, you know?
That's why I go feed.
But I don't give it just so. Here one. Them insure up to 600,000. That means if you have 500,000 in your bank and something happen, you get back 500,000. You understand?
Oh. So that means alright.
So you get what I say?
Yeah, me get where I say.
But here the part you know,
yeah,
them free. And I like insurance, so you have got pay money and one day you set up every month you have pay insurance and every year you have pay insurance. It's free.
So them just insure your money just free, so I don't have to do nothing?
That me I try to tell you.
So what you try to say, it's automatic?
Now that me just tell you.
You don't have to pay a fee.
And that me just say.
It's automatic.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay a fee.
You scratch?
No, no scratch. Me just make sure so me get where I say. It's automatic.
Yeah.
Me don't have to pay a fee.
Yeah.
Oh.
So JDIC in my bank account?
No, Granny. I don't like say them in your bank account. Them protect the money where in your bank account.
In the man.
Alright, what on the Kevin card? See when me have little problem now that me know say me now get 600,000. Cause nothing happen. And nothing happen. But what me I say is that me not really have like no whole heap of different account. Me just have one savings account. Them protect that.
Alright. Whether savings or checkings account, you are protected. But guess what now?
What?
You have to make sure say the bank where your money in
yeah.
them are in partnership with the JDIC scheme. So guess what now? It's either you go put your money in a trusted bank or in a building society. You can't just have money nowadays and just put your money anywhere and you don't know how them things they go.
But I never signed up with these JDIC people, so how this come about now with this whole thing?
No, Granny, you not listen to me. You not have to sign up. It's free and it's automatic.
Yeah, remember somebody did scratch? You don't have to pay for it. It's automatic.
Me not used to you because you need a new brain.
It will work.
You understand, Granny? So, you see this JDIC thing, it really a look out for we and look out for our money. You get what I say?
Okay.
But most important, remember the most important part, you know. Why most important part?
It's free.
Alright. So here are Granny. Here are. As me tell you, a little more, me I perform down at Emancipation Park for JDIC, you know. Because I grew up, you don't know what thing go. And all the way I do things, so, but I love you there, you know, Granny.
Carry him with you, do. Carry him, eating something good.
Alright, no worry, Granny. So, we are go down there, and then you can just come watch the thing. Here, Granny. Alright, little more, yeah.
Sorry for telling you, they get $600,000.
No, come on, hello, Granny. Come here.
Tired, you raise up my temperature, you raise it up.
Boy.
Come. How you carry it?
deposit protectors, them insure your money. You don't have to worry.
JDIC was formed back in 98. From then till now, them are the things we're great, providing the highest level of protection for every man, yeah, and every woman.
And manage deposit insurance scheme to provide the coverage for you and your team in building societies and banks when they protect your money.
Hey, when we talk about scheme, I know the one where you live, it's not a trick. Listen up, very positive. The Jamaica Deposit Insurance Corporation are part of the plan.
JDIC, financial stability, protecting your money. You don't have to worry. JDIC, deposit protectors, them insure your money. You don't have to worry.
Having any problem financially, you are here to ask about JDIC. Them protect depositors and promote stability, the main purpose, and be ensure safety.
No registration, it's automatic. JDIC provide deposit coverage, protect, promote, ensure safety. Pick up JDIC and look out for it.
JDIC, financial stability, protecting your money. You don't have to worry. JDIC, deposit protectors, them insure your money. You don't have to worry. JDIC, protecting deposits, them will keep your money safer than the clothes in the closet. Coverage is provided for the smallest deposit, so if a protection you need, link them cause you know them will have it. JDIC, financial stability, protecting your money. You don't have to worry. JDIC. Deposit protectors, them insure your money. You don't have to worry. JDIC, financial stability, protecting your money. You don't have to worry. JDIC, deposit protectors, them insure your money. You don't have to worry. JDIC, protecting deposits for you and me.
Yeah.
With the bag.
So what you say is free, it's free and automatic. You don't have to pay for it, eh? Let's hear it again for the children's first basketball crew. Thank you very much. That was very, very good. All right, we're going to continue with our evening, and I'm just reminding you, Marjorie and your crew, remember some persons have their hands up around this section with our program, the formal aspect of our program. And at this stage, I would like to tell you a little bit about our next speaker. He joined the Jamaica Stock Exchange, JSE, in 1995. And he became the Chief Regulatory Officer on April 1st, 2008. I kid you not. He previously served as Assistant General Manager, Marketing Operations and Trading for over 4 years. Listed companies and other stakeholders complies with the rules of the exchange. Notwithstanding such a packed slate of activities, he still finds time to provide mentorship to adolescents at Youth Opportunities Unlimited, YOU, helping them to develop the necessary skills to achieve success. It has been said that an investment in knowledge always pays the best interest. Please put your hands together for Mr. Wentworth Graham, who will be sharing his vast wealth of knowledge about investing in the stock market.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My job this evening is to give a presentation on investing in the stock market. I think before I start the presentation, it is important to recognize that the overarching theme of the forum is protecting your money in today's economy. And therefore, even though I will provide invaluable information on how to invest in the stock market, I think I have to be mindful of sharing information that will give you some assurance that investing in the stock market, you can also do it in a way that your wealth and what you put in it will be protected. Investing in the stock market, I think I will first throw out a few questions that we want to answer in this presentation. And they go as follows. Why would you invest in the stock market? Why? How do you go about investing in the stock market? Who can invest in the stock market? Is it available to everyone? When can you invest in the stock market? And what is it that you're engaging when you invest in the stock market? And last but not least, where do you go to invest in the stock market? And by answering all these questions, I'll wrap up my presentation with you this evening, and I trust that it will give you insight in investing in the stock market. So why do you invest in the stock market? Firstly, one has to recognize that you are participating in an activity of investment, and essentially you are securing part of your resources that is not used for consumption to put it away for some future use. Now, it is no scientific dream to say that you want to secure that money for future use, because at that point in time you want to make sure that available for your utility. At a point in time, you may have excess money available and you cannot spend all of it on some consumption item. And it is important to secure that money somewhere where you can get use of it at some time in the future. Now, when you take a decision to invest in the stock market for future use, you will have to bear in mind that you are going to do it with an institution that is reputable. And that is why I have my overseer or other presenter, the FSC, that will also share with you pertinent information that when you're investing in the stock market, you have to do it with people who are licensed by the Financial Services Commission, and these individuals all meet fit and proper tests. Therefore, what you have to bear in mind is that the decision to invest in the stock market is to go to a reputable institution that tomorrow, when you decide to get back your money, you know that you can go to an individual who will be in existence. That is no trick at all. So when you take a decision to invest in the stock market, you are taking a decision to put away some funds for future use, and you're taking a decision to rely on an individual that is licensed to undertake such activity for you. How do you go about investing in the stock market? Well, we already mentioned that you will be engaging an individual who is licensed to do the investment on your behalf. How it is done is to make sure that the ideas that you have in terms of your investment horizon are executed. And this is done by having an interview with the investment dealer on what you want to invest in. You may decide that you want to be an aggressive investor or a moderate investor. But that information will not be transmitted to the investment dealer unless you have an interview with that person. So when you're engaging the investment dealer in investing for you, you want to make sure that they are representing your interests. And your interest means what you want to invest in. How do you want to invest? And why do you want to invest? Usually, this is represented by what is called an investment policy statement. And it is quite frequent for you to get a copy of this statement that the investment dealer can get a clear idea as to how to invest for you. We are quite familiar with the banks in Jamaica and the credit unions and so on. I will share with you this evening that there are 11 member dealers of the stock exchange that can invest on your behalf. And these are the individuals who represent who can be the intermediaries for investing in stocks for you. These member dealers are regulated by the Jamaica Stock Exchange as well as the Financial Services Commission. And I just want to pause here a bit to mention that the regulatory affairs of the Jamaica Stock Exchange is undertaken by my division, which reports to an independent body of the board of the Jamaica Stock Exchange. So what we have at the stock exchange at this point in time is a clear mandate where it undertakes its day-to-day commercial activities as well as it undertakes its regulatory responsibilities. And with this undertaking, and that is the undertaking of the regulatory responsibilities, we can make sure that the member dealers are operating in a way that is consistent with the rules of the Jamaica Stock Exchange. It is quite easy to get carried away, to get information from someone who is not knowledgeable about the investment market. And we at the stock exchange advises that it is important that when you are interfacing with an investment dealer, we are providing a professional who has full knowledge of how the market operates. And that is why it is very important to make sure that when you are investing in the stock market, you are doing it with a member of the stock exchange, because these are the individuals who are licensed to do these type of transactions for you. When can you invest in the stock market? Investing in the stock market is open at any time. It is open at any time. Of course, we know that the mechanics has to be worked out so as to provide accommodation as to when you can trade. Trading takes place on the stock market 5 days per week, and it is from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m. It is an important fact to recognize that at this point in time at the stock exchange, we have what is called remote trading. And that simply is a situation where no longer are member dealers required to assemble at the stock exchange to trade. They can stay at their offices and do trading on your behalf. And this type of technology is representative of what is in other advanced markets. So here goes. We are saying to you that your stock market, your Jamaica Stock Exchange, is on par with other international markets in the way they transact business in securities trading. So there's no need to feel as if you are being left behind, to say that when you're interfacing with the stock exchange, you're not interfacing with an organization that is doing its operation that is consistent with international best practices. Stocks are simply equity provisions that are in a company. And what does that mean? When you are starting a business, you can finance it by your own savings, or you can go to the bank and borrow money. Now, when you invest in the stock market, you are basically exercising an option of investing some of your money into the business. But here goes. When you invest some of your money into that business, you are becoming a part owner into that business. So no longer are you just a person that is outside of the ownership structure of the business. Yes, we understand that the day-to-day operations of the business is done by a board of directors and other management team. However, when you buy shares in a company, you are basically participating in a way to be a part owner in that company. And that gives you a number of privileges. Privileges such as to be entitled to be present at an annual general meeting. Privilege to share in the profits of the company when they declare such corporate actions such as a dividend. A dividend payment is basically a portion of the company's returns that they are distributing to the shareholders. You have privilege to voice your concerns at annual general meetings as it relates to the nomination of the directors and the decisions that they are taking in relation to expanding the business or doing any sort of restructuring that may affect its operations. So when you invest in the stock market, you are investing through a medium that allows you to become a part owner in a company. And that is something that we all should try to gravitate towards, because it provides you with that extra edge in terms of having some sort of interest in how the company is operated, and more fundamentally, it gives you an opportunity to advance the welfare of the overall economy. Might I say that on the stock exchange, there are some 43 listed companies, and these are open to everyone sitting here. The stock exchange is not a market for uptown, and the downtown people cannot invest in it. It is open to all. And to give you an example of why it is open to all, today you can invest in a stock that costs you per share as low as 5 cents, $1, but it can reach you to a high of $300. But that doesn't mean that because it is so high, you are excluded from participating in the stock market. When you take a decision to invest in the stock market, there's an important action that you have to take. And this involves you being a member of the Jamaica Central Securities Depository. The Jamaica Central Securities Depository is a subsidiary of the Jamaica Stock Exchange. And this organization provides an opportunity for all shareholders to hold their securities in a dematerialized form. What does that mean? I mean, that's a big word, dematerialize. It simply means that instead of you having your share certificate in a paper-based form that would be subjected to the elements, fire, it being lost, it being destroyed in some way or fashion, you can lodge this share certificate with the Jamaica Central Securities Depository, and at any time you can trade these shares. I will also want to mention that when you invest, when you lodge your certificates with the Jamaica Central Securities Depository, you also have an opportunity to do financial transactions on these securities. You can take loan against these companies. Some institutions allow you to take loan against these shares, and you can use them to work for you. So, my dear friends, when you hear about the stock market, I want to encourage you to recognize that it is not something that you should think that is strange to you all sitting here. It is a vehicle that is open to all, and it is something that you should make an effort to invest in. While I give you all the commercial background to investing in the stock market, I think it is important to also highlight certain pertinent information to inform you why investing in the stock market, you will also create a protection of your money in today's economy. The rules of the stock exchange are for member dealers and for the listed companies. And my division makes sure that all the rules of the stock exchange is complied with. For the listed companies, there are clear regulations when companies should file financial statements, and this is very important because with the filing of financial statements, you can get information as to how to assess the performance of the company and then make a determination as to what further investment decisions you want to do. So there are rules such as filing requirements, rules such as when companies should disclose material information to the stock exchange, rules which governs how they should communicate with the stock exchange when they are trading by their directors. And all these rules are so fashioned so as to give the stock exchange an opportunity to monitor the operations of the listed companies. And on the other hand, we have rules for the member dealers. Rules in terms of conduct, rules in terms of business continuity, rules in terms of even how they should advertise insurance and other related matters. And these rules are from time to time reviewed with a view to enhancing them, to making sure that they are up to international standards. So while I will stand here this evening and encourage you to invest in the stock market because it will give you the most attractive and legal returns there is, I will say to you that investing in the stock market is also a vehicle where you can protect your investment because there are regulations that govern the stock market. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Graham of the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to our final presenter for this evening, and I, without further ado, will introduce her. It has been rumored that our final speaker was a major supporter of the recent Fashion Night Out. She obviously has a tremendous love of hats, which explains why she wears so many of them. She's a regulator, a lawyer, and a mediator. A graduate of the Norman Manley Law School and the Columbia University School of Law, she currently serves as the General Counsel of the Financial Services Commission. Her experience in financial services regulation extends into the international arena. And I ask you now to give a warm welcome to Mrs. Loretta Reed-Pitt, who will be speaking on investor protection and wealth creation.
Thank you, Andre. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls. On behalf of Executive Director Rohan Barnett, I wish to express my sincere thanks to the Jamaica Deposit Insurance Corporation for inviting the Financial Services Commission, the FSC, to participate in this public forum. We welcome the opportunity to share our perspectives on the regulator's role in protecting investors and creating wealth. Say that the Financial Services Commission regulates insurance, securities, and pensions. We do not regulate credit unions. Credit unions are regulated by the Bank of Jamaica. There are those that view regulatory action as a hindrance to innovation, wealth creation, growth, and development of the financial markets. However, we at the Financial Services Commission do not view regulation in this manner, nor do we regard regulation as an end in itself, but as a means to facilitate wealth creation. We believe that real and sustainable wealth can only be created and preserved in an attractive investment climate that is efficiently regulated to, one, foster the integrity, stability, and health of the financial sector, and two, to enhance public understanding and confidence in the operations of the institutions that fall under our regulation. It is the FSC's strong belief that financial regulation facilitates the creation and preservation of wealth, while lack of regulation has the potential to not only impede wealth creation, but to obliterate or destroy accumulated wealth. While a regulated entity may express this to a client, it is very unlikely that principals of an unregulated financial organization will believe this and even articulate it to their clients. As Ms. McCain mentioned, in the last few years, 2007 to about 2009, we here in Jamaica saw a phenomenon of what we call the UFOs, and incredible returns. And I always say when approached by persons about the prospect of incredible returns that if it sounds too true to be good, it probably is. And if it was so good and so easy, all of us would be rich. Loss of wealth is a similar outcome from investing with any fraudulent or unregulated financial operations. For example, we're not unique. In the United States, there was the impact of the collapse of probably the biggest UFO, the Madoff, which was estimated to be around US $50 billion. Now, according to the British Broadcasting Commission, many wealthy people, not only individuals, but organizations, charitable organizations, celebrities, appear to have been wiped out. Financial institutions around the world are counting the cost, and saddest of all, some charities are being forced to close because of their losses. It is being argued that had the United States Securities Exchange Commission, the SEC, been more vigilant, or indeed if hedge funds had not been excluded from regulation, the Madoff Ponzi scheme might not have grown to the extent that it did. This underscores the importance of regulation, and that quite often, under-regulation poses a serious threat to not only the integrity and future of the financial market, but as well to investors' wealth and lifestyle. And regulation is about a balance, just as Ms. McCain talked about the amount of the deposit insurance limit, trying to reach a balance where you cover a majority of the depositors without creating a situation where banks and depositors feel that they can take undue risk. Likewise, regulators have to strike a balance, allowing enough room for creativity, innovation, but on the same hand, making sure that risks are assessed and controlled. And where you fail to do that, then you have situations such as the Madoff Ponzi scheme, which due to the existence of, at the time, unregulated hedge funds, was able to create a situation that caused billions of dollars of losses. Given the disruption that these unregulated financial organizations have caused globally, the FSC will continue to ensure that any entity or individual who makes investment products available to our public is registered or licensed to conduct such business. Jamaican law prohibits all persons from engaging in such activities without the relevant registration or license. The FSC has proposed legislative amendments to strengthen our anti-fraud and enforcement capabilities in order to protect investors from fraud. However, apart from protection of investors, the FSC Act and other statutes and regulations that guide the FSC's operations were also designed to facilitate for issuers the raising of capital efficiently and at low cost. And Mr. Graham made reference to shares being an ownership interest in companies whereby you are placing capital, your money, in the companies in order to accomplish a return. And the difference between deposit-taking and non-deposit-taking entities is that your returns would be higher in the non-deposit-taking sector, but then your risk would be higher as well. So issuers want to raise capital efficiently and at low cost, and so they issue shares to the investing public. As Professor David Ruder of Pace University School of Law and former chairman of the U.S. SEC recently concluded, the regulator's pursuit of investor protection is aligned with interest of capital formation because honest markets are the best markets. If investors are comfortable that they will not be defrauded, the cost of capital will be lower, as investors will have no reason to discount for potential dishonesty. Furthermore, the FSC's role not only reaps benefits for investors, but has a positive multiplier effect on the economy as it builds confidence and enhances transparency and efficiency in the capital markets. And the financial system depends upon confidence. What keeps investors and depositors from going to the bank and lining up for their money is the fact that we have confidence in a JDIC. We have confidence that the FSC and the Jamaica Stock Exchange, through rules and regulations, are regulating the stock market and dealers, the securities firms, investment firms. Dr. Charles Assembly, former general manager for the Ghana Stock Exchange and former director general of Ghana's Securities Regulation Commission, explained how the capital markets impact the economy. He expressed the following: today, capital markets have become important instruments for economic growth and development around the world. They exist to provide issuers of securities or users of capital with an avenue to raise capital from the public. Indeed, the capital market is an extremely important engine for a country's economic development, as it serves to meet the funding needs of companies, enabling them to grow and thereby provide jobs. The interplay of all of the above, namely issuers of capital, as well as individual and institutional investors, can produce real benefits for the players in the pursuit of wealth creation or profit maximization. When Mr. Earl made mention of the financial crisis of the 1990s, he didn't mention that in the 1990s as well, the stock market was riding very high. And I've heard stories of persons who borrowed money to invest in the stock market, and they made a lot of money. So we can see that there is money to be made, as Mr. Graham said, in the stock markets. Being cognizant of the importance of the capital markets, the FSC strives to enforce effective regulation of the financial markets, which are vital to consumers, policy holders, investors, pensioners, capital formation, job creation, and sustainable economic growth. The FSC does not have a hidden agenda and is not conspiring with anyone or any group to prevent anyone in our society from creating wealth. As mentioned before, the FSC is guided by statutes and regulations. The objective of these laws is to protect investors from securities fraud and other abuses, and thereby ensure that there is investor confidence in the market. Jamaica is a member of the International Organization of Securities Commissions. So the FSC as well seeks to meet best practices with respect to regulation of the sectors that we are responsible for. And today we're specifically speaking about the securities sector. So the International Organization of Securities Commission, IOSCO, is the international standing setting body for securities regulators. And there are three core objectives of securities regulation, according to IOSCO. One, the protection of investors. Two, ensuring that markets are fair, efficient, and transparent. And three, the reduction of systemic risk. Therefore, the purpose and intent of the FSC's actions is to protect the customers who have limited information or knowledge of the products, services, operations of financial institutions, and the integrity, experience, and skill of those who manage these institutions. Financial regulation seeks to ensure that the owners and managers of financial service institutions are honest persons with appropriate skills to carry out their responsibilities in an ethical, prudent, and lawful manner. Before going any further, I must emphasize that the overriding theme of financial regulation is that financial markets exist to play a key role in creating wealth and economic development. However, the players in the industry, namely investors, the market, and the intermediaries, need to comply with not just the letter, but also the substance and intent of the relevant acts and regulations in order to facilitate the efficient, effective, and ethical functioning of the financial markets and ensure confidence, vibrancy, integrity, and the creation and preservation of wealth. Every player in the financial market must adhere to the spirit of the Act and the regulations for Jamaica to maximize the expected outcomes. We at the FSC believe that companies, supported by their professional advisors and encouraged by the investor community, have the primary responsibility for achieving high standards of prudential requirements.